Well, thank you for staying with Decision 2017. This is the Leadership Forum where we deviate slightly from politics and find the solutions that we need to move forward as a country. The question we asked you earlier on today is, what ails Kenya and how do we solve it? The hashtag is AM Live at Trevor Ombija at AM Live. We'll read some of your views coming through. Of course, my phone lines will be open in just a bit. Then you can call in and let's find a solution between all of us here. What ails Kenya and how do we solve it? My guests are already with me in studio, beginning from my immediate left, Honorable Esther Passaris, Nairobi Women Representative, and also joining me is Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi, former Nyeri Women Representative, and they will be speaking to us in just a bit about how do we move forward and political tolerance as well. Nyokabi is already at the podium. She has 5 minutes. The way this works, by the way, is that they all have 5 minutes to speak about political tolerance or a subject of their choice, and then we'll sit down and talk about the way forward. But before I give Priscilla Nyokabi her time, let me read a few of your comments coming in on Twitter after we asked you that question about what ails the country and what are the solutions. Duncan Makura says, Kenya is ailed by political divisiveness, no ethnic inclusion, gluttony of power is being exercised. And we have Victor here. Victor Ndiema says, the constitution was written to work for the political system rather than institutions where all decisions are politically driven. And we also have Stephen Kabuoro says, many Kenyans put tribe first and country second. And we also have another one here from Gabriel. He says it's making leaders accountable. Let governors develop their regions to uplift local people, to stop thinking of marginalization. We still have another one here from Gabriel who says we should start thinking like Kenyans, not like separate tribes. We should reduce counties to 8. 47, it's separating each tribe on its own. That's an interesting perspective there. And we have a person here who calls himself the Kenyan pastor. He says the truth, this Katiba suits the political idols and human rights group, not for the Wanjiku. And you have Victor here who says, we are held hostage at every turn of events politically. Institutions are staffed politically. Do we have a civil service anymore? And last but not least here, Abdikadir says, for Kenya to move forward, we need to strengthen the independence of constitutional offices. My phone lines will be open in just a bit. Let us know what you think is ailing the country and how do we solve it. But for now, Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi, your time starts now, 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Let me greet our viewers wherever they are. On the question of political tolerance and leadership, I just had 5 points that could help us in terms of the leaders that we'll be looking for and the leaders who will guide the process moving forward. One of the major issues we need right now is courage. Our country has become very, very polarized. We must have leaders who can courageously stand for all. I mean, live and let live. That even though you are on one side of the divide, you still have courage and ability to admit that the country has many, many more communities. And even sometimes when your side of the divide has a certain position, you can reach to the other side so that courageously the country can move forward. We are also looking for development. I think at the basis of all this political turmoil and political competition is need for development in this country. We want children to go to school everywhere in the country. We want young people to be employed everywhere in the country. If you look at the category of people who are at risk of attending demonstrations, usually they turn out to be people who live in informal settlements and people who are not employed. I think that the question of development across all of our 47 counties is one that we need to see. The one that is also very critical is rule of law. Our constitution is very new and very young, just about 7 years old. It's one of the best constitutions around the globe, and it is one that we want to nurture, and we want to have total fidelity to the rule of law. I just came from a conference in Kampala where it was underscored again and again the importance of rule of law in economic development. If you abandon the rule of law, you go into a forest and a wilderness which is really difficult to get out of. It is true the rule of law has its own weaknesses and its own problems, but any society is much better following the rule of law. So that for people like myself, having this election before the 60 days were completed as provided for in the Constitution was extremely important. We need a no-violence principle, that whatever we are doing in this country, whatever our debates, however heated our passions, whatever our ethnicity, whatever our intolerance, there is just no violence. That we have as a society a red line, no violence. We can have any debate on inclusion, we can have any debate on regional balance, we can have any debate on our ethnicities and the Kikuyus and the Luos and the Kalenjins and everybody else, but no violence, that there must be no violence, so that any debate around militia is a bad debate, any debate about secession is a bad debate. A no violence rule, that we are Kenyans, we are all Kenyans, we live here. Tutakanyagana hapa hapa, hakuna mtu atahama na hakuna mtu ataumiza mwenzake. Tutaishi in peace so that the conversations are moving our country forward. As long as there's no violence, everything else is something that we can be able to accommodate within the confines of our laws. Let me just finish on the way forward. For me, the way forward in where we are is have the president sworn in, have the president, because he won the election, have him sworn in, have him take over office with the deputy president, have them start to form government, and in that formation of government, worry about the problem of inclusion. Why are some parts of the country feeling excluded from government? That is a question that can be answered as government is being formed. How can we have inclusive growth? How can we have growth that is in my county of Nyeri, growth that is in Mandera, growth that is in Turkana? How can healthcare systems work across this country? In the formation of government and in how government is going to work, those are questions that can easily be assimilated. In some countries, they have an Equal Opportunities Commission. You can set up a ministry about national healing and reconciliation. We had a Ministry of Justice before. Those are some of the issues that you can look into so that going forward, we are able to handle the issues that are on the table. And lastly, with the leaders who are in the opposition, the question of having a structured opposition, how do we also benefit from an opposition that is structured? And how do we find space for leaders who command sufficient respect in this country, but may not be in the houses of leadership? They are not in the National Assembly, and they are not in the Senate. And we want, as a country, to benefit from the views, from the talent, from the history that they have had. And so the question about how to accommodate somebody like the former Prime Minister within the confines of the Constitution that we have, I think that is a debate that this country can have. Even we don't need to change the Constitution. I personally don't believe that we need to do away with the Constitution that we gave ourselves just 7 years ago. Within that Constitution, we can find space, we can find elasticity sufficient to allow our society to move forward. When we were debating the 2/3 gender rule, for example, and asking that there be more women in Senate and National Assembly, we were looking at just small amendments in Article 97 and 98 and allow more women to come into Parliament. I think the same Articles 97 and 98 can be looked at in terms of seeing whether the former Prime Minister can then play some of the roles that he wants to play in this country within structures, within governance system, within ways that the country moves forward. Let me leave it there for now.
About timing, 4 minutes, 52 seconds. Thanks for making time for us. That's Priscilla, Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi, former Nyeri women representative. Before election to Parliament, Honorable Nyokabi was the executive director of Kituo cha Sheria. Now taking the podium is Honorable Esther Passaris, Nairobi women representative. She's also a politician, a philanthropist, and an entrepreneur. She's the current women representative for Nairobi County, like I mentioned earlier. Honorable Esther, your time starts now.
What ails Kenya? We're a depressed and soon to be a very suppressed nation. I mean, we have to be honest with each other. We've had an election. In fact, we've had 2 elections. I don't want to call the second one a sham, but that's what is in the public domain. At the end of the day, we had one election where we spent billions of shillings. I saw the CS Rotich yesterday say we've reached 100 billion. Can you imagine what we could have done with 100 billion? So the first question is, what happened on August 8th? What happened on August 8th should have been a concern for the sitting president at that time. How can we lose 40 or so billion shillings, right, in an election that doesn't go right? Why did the judiciary rule against this election, send us back to the election? What do we have to do so that we don't get to that space? We are a country that is divided, and we're divided because we're not doing things right. If we have a constitution, we should respect and follow the constitution. That's given. We have institutions, we should respect the institutions that we've put in place. But at the moment, we have one thing that we need to deal with. What is it that divides us? And how are we going to deal with it? My sister here says we should swear the president, we should move on, we should find something to give to the former prime minister. What if the former prime minister is the duly elected president of Kenya by the people of Kenya? I believe that he is so. Nyokabi believes that it is Uhuru. The question is, when you have doubt, you have a problem with that institution. So the first thing that ails Kenya is that we do not know whether the IEBC conducted a free and fair election the first time round. The judiciary said it wasn't. I, as a voter, don't even know whether the MCA that has been given to the people, the MP that has been given to the people, the senator, the governor, me, myself as woman rep, was it conducted free and fair? What do we have to do? We cannot move forward if we don't sort that out. And if we allege that we're going to move forward, swear in Uhuru and move forward, then you have the Nasser resistance movement, right? We're not moving forward. We need to move forward by addressing the issues of the election. Now, I know the business community is saying, oh, we can't do that. Our businesses are ailing. But I want them to understand that at the end of the day, the majority of Kenyans who vote are not employed. The majority of Kenyans who vote feel that they have not been looked after over the last 5 years. The majority of Kenyans who vote now are more aware of their tribe than they were 10 years ago, because we've brought tribalism back. Militia has been brought back, and I blame the government for militia coming back. You had the Mungiki coming in as the Nairobi business community. You had the CS of internal security talking about a militia group in Kisii. So for me, now we're trying to say Raila has a militia. For me, nobody should have a militia. But why would you have a militia because of poverty? How do you address poverty because of good leadership? Was the Jubilee government offering a good leadership? Did they address corruption? Did they address poverty? The Nasser strike took 5 months. I went into Kenyatta and I saw how our people were suffering. Cholera outbreaks everywhere. Kenyatta overwhelmed. Did it have to take 5 months? What happened over the last 24 hours that actually led to us sitting down and addressing this issue? We don't care about the poor in this country. That's what ails us. And then if we care about the poor and they're the majority who vote, they need to have a process that is credible, free, fair. For me, I believe that if we are going to go to court and we're going to have another process in the courts, what's important is to sit down and agree to have an election that every Kenyan feels this was free, fair, and credible. I do not believe that the election that was conducted recently was free, fair, and credible. Why? We have to ask ourselves one question. Why did Raila Amolo Odinga withdraw from the race? He withdrew from the race because he did not want to waste resources. He did not want to have an election which was going to be a mockery. Had Raila not withdrawn from the race, let me tell you what the results would have been. 70+1, already depicted by the government, that this is what we're going to have. Because what they wanted to do was to shame Raila, all right, with a process that was not free, fair, and credible. And you cannot do that. We go to church, we pray. And our church leaders, I want to tell you something, that you as church leaders need to actually search your souls. Because we are being confused as congregations that come to your churches. But the church has to be very consistent that we want what is right. The business community also has to be consistent. We want what is right. We don't want business as usual. If the businesses are ailing, you should have been the first people at the forefront to say, we want and demand a free, fair, and credible election. I think it's important that we open the service. I think it's important we understand what went wrong on 8th of August. I think it's important that we do away with the sham election that just happened. And I think it's important that we have a free, fair, and credible election where leaders come on board, and then we have another chance to take this country forward.
Thank you. That's the end of your time there. I want to read some of your feedback coming through. The question was, what ails this country and how do we solve it? And let's start from Joshua. He says, what's ailing us is selfishness. Everyone is pulling on their own side, tearing our country apart. We need to think of the others as well. Then Kenyan pastor here says we need to change the system and not give politics priority. This is why the nurses have been on strike for months. And we have Christian who says Kenyans should put the country first. That's our new constitutional reality, given folks are obsessed with the document these days. And we also have Jacob Abere who says Kenya ails from multiple historical geo-resources imbalances and political idiocy. Pushed for agenda, Kenya than preaching peace. And then we have Fanuel, he says, a lot of counties have been marginalized for the last 5 years, more especially the counties perceived to be strongholds of other political affiliations. All right, and that's where our conversation begins. And I'll start with you, Honorable Priscilla. You mentioned something about saying the rule of law. You think the Constitution, we should have just done the elections within the 60 days as stipulated in the Constitution, and that was extremely important. But Honorable Passaris is bringing in an issue that the moment there is doubt, that already shows there's a problem. Because one side says that Jubilee party leader won, the other side says it was a sham election. That in itself is a problem, right? So how do we restore this institutional lack of confidence in institutions, like the IEBC, for example?
Yeah, it is indeed true that we don't have the perfect IEBC. And rule of law, the sense about it is this, that every year and every season you improve your systems. We have a much better election than we had 10 years ago. This is a country that came from Lolongo elections, so we are no longer in Lolongo. So every season and every cycle, our systems improve. There is certain reasons that explain why this IEBC is not the strongest. Part of them actually caused by the former Prime Minister. Kriegler had told us that if you want a strong IEBC, do not remove it 2 years, at least put it 2 years before the election. We haven't been able to do that in this country. We are putting in our IEBCs very close to the election. But that is not a reason to say that because you don't have a perfect IEBC, you don't go to the election. Two wrongs don't make a right. So the answer was not for the former Prime Minister to leave the election. The answer was to go to this election. There were problems in the 8th election which were identified by the courts. Check whether those have been addressed. Of course, some of them could not have been addressed in the space of 60 days. But in law, we say your first thing is to obey the order. And then go in there and either change the rules or change the game, or after you have obeyed, not by disobeying. So by disobeying, you don't help. And I personally don't support an issue in Kenya where boycott becomes a way of resolving issues. I would prefer that we put the issues on the table because now boycotting, as long as the institutions say that an election is going on, it will go on, whether you are there or not. And an election did go on, whether the former Prime Minister was there or not. So it's true that the IEBC is not perfect, but the answer is not to boycott. The answer is to keep engaging in these institutions, allow them time, bring in professionals around them, give the institutions support, and let them grow from strength to strength.
Yeah. Honorable Passaris, this argument has come up several times. NASA said that they're not going to go into these elections because it had a predetermined outcome. The court order was that go back to the elections. If NASA already knew this, why wouldn't they just obey the court order and then prove later on that this was a sham? Because the court also said that if you come back to us with these same issues, we will nullify the election again.
Do you know, for me, you know, it's so logical and it's so obvious, but we're running around it. At the end of the day, okay, so let's just say Raila did not withdraw. He goes into an election, then it's fixed in such a way that he loses 70+1, all right? The same issues not resolved, we go back to court, and then what? For me, I feel the fact that if the government actually wanted a free, fair and credible process, they should have driven the process. I can't understand why Uhuru Kenyatta, who it's alleged that he won on 8th August. Why he didn't want to fix the IEBC? He was like, oh, you know what? I am not. When he met Chebukati, he was like, I did not ask you to do anything. I am very happy with everything you've done. The only thing I'm asking you is go and conduct the election. That's it. I don't need any changes whatsoever. He doesn't want any changes. He's not questioning why were there extra ballot papers that were printed, who printed them. He's not questioning why were more people voting for presidency here than they were for governor. He's not questioning why were the numbers that were reported in the constituency not the ones that were reported in the IEBC portal. He's saying, you know what, it's okay. I don't need you to change anything. All right, I was just stripped of my win. You just go back and do it again. All right, and then what do? Raila says, I want the irreducible minimums. Even Jubilee are on record saying that most of the irreducible minimums that Raila wanted could have been put in place. You say, absolutely no, I'm not going to dialogue, I'm not going to meet him. We will meet after the elections, and now we will meet after I'm sworn in. I mean, let me tell you, we cannot have such sense of arrogance. Power does not give you the right for arrogance. Power should not make you ignorant either. You should look at your country. Every Kenyan's life matters. Okay. You know, when I saw even the way the president made his speech, right, it wasn't reconciliation about reuniting the Kenyans. It wasn't about the people that died. You know, it was about, again, hitting back at the opposition. Opposition is what we need in a country. It's what we fought for. Right? He's been in opposition before. He knows what it feels like. So at the end of the day, let us agree one thing. The elections, without Raila, there was no election. All right? We didn't need to spend that kind of money trying to give legitimacy by making sure Kuru Court and all these people are in. Yeah. We didn't need to do that. We should have just said Raila is withdrawn. Okay, fine. Let's move on. Okay. Let's bring in a caller from Nairobi. David is calling. David, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, go ahead with your comment or question, David.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is, this country is at a point whereby... Hello?
Yes, we are listening. Go ahead.
This country is at a point whereby the Jubilee Party and the country at large is suffering because of them. Huh?
Okay.
Simply because the president is a sitting president. At no given time can a sitting president be removed from office in Africa. But when you look at the president as at now, what he's practicing is he's behaving as if he's part of the Jubilee administration. He's behaving as if he's part of the IEBC.
Okay.
Raila Odinga comes up and says, this IEBC has done as wrong. It has done as harm. It is the one that has given us a sham election. Instead of the president going even at the back and saying this IEBC is wrong and we need to remove it, maybe he does his way to ensure that the IEBC is removed so that Kenyans can see as if he is also trying to be away from IEBC. He backs it.
Okay.
That is where the problem is coming from. What he should have done, he should have united the country at first, so that nobody sees as if he's partisan, so that people see as if he's a neutral person.
Okay.
Then he goes to the election, Raila goes to the election, and everything, we don't have a standoff as it is now.
Okay.
So we need to come together, because as at now we are not together at all. The country is split into two. What we do, we need these leaders to come together as soon as possible so that we do not break the country.
All right, David.
Yes.
Thanks. That's a call from David in Nairobi. And Priscilla, I'll come to you. And I know you don't speak on behalf of the president, but you understand the thinking around the Jubilee party. Many people have asked this question before. If he won in August 8th, his win was allegedly stolen by IEBC or any other institution. So how come you don't have a problem with the IEBC?
I don't think is that there's no problem with the IEBC. It is that the court nullified the election of the 8th August and ordered another election to be held within 60 days by the same IEBC, really as the law ought to have provided.
But only the court nullified that election because
so
it wasn't held according to the laws and regulations.
Strict guidelines of law. It is a decision that will be questioned. I think that for many, many years to come, there will still be a lot of questions on that decision by the Supreme Court. I think now, in hindsight, people understand why Supreme Courts don't easily nullify elections. Look, the country has really gone into a period of uncertainty. Since then, the economy has suffered a big hit. But the thing was this, that there wasn't sufficient time to get into reforms of IEBC. Reforms of IEBC are not something you do in an instant. For example, now, after this election, both of the 8th and of the 26th, they have to go and audit their systems. They have to go and audit their staff. They have to go and check where did the rain beat them. And once they do that, they can comprehensively advise the country on what are the reforms that are necessary in terms of moving the IEBC forward. Before, when I served as the Vice Chair for Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, we had started as early as 3 years before to ask the IEBC to set up their electoral systems in terms of technology. Because even in 2013, the issue of technology was still raised in the Supreme Court. And so I personally also feel that they could have done better. So it's not that the president doesn't have any problems at all with IEBC. It is that in the space of 60 days, and in terms of respecting the judicial order that has been given, there wasn't, the court itself did not say that go and change this, go and change that in the IEBC. But after the election, I think that that is a process that we can go into. The only thing I want to respond to also, when you're following the rule of law, it is not arrogance. It is just that the country has certain legalities that we have to follow. There is no arrogance around going into an election. There is no, you can imagine between the former Prime Minister and the President, who suffered that decision more, it was the President because he's the one who had a win and he's the one who had now to go back into an election. And not only to go to an election as a candidate, to guide the country. We are in the eyes of everybody as a country, the eyes of the world. You can imagine the responsibility on his shoulders. You are a candidate, but you've got a responsibility of 45 million Kenyans and keeping us united and keeping violence out of our processes. So it's not arrogance. It's just that, you know, there are certain emotions that have to be taken on.
But I find your argument a bit interesting, that there was not enough time, so we can only talk about restructuring the institution after the elections. How would that happen, yet many people are questioning that same election that has been done by that institution? How do you conduct an election that is questioned by everyone and then now backtrack and start looking at the institution?
Let me tell you, even this questioning is an interesting questioning. she is a product of the same IEBC. I lost with the same IEBC. So even this questioning is a bit of an interesting question. Yeah. I lost my seat in Nyeri. I watched the processes. I had my agents. And by and large, I think that the election was fair. Okay. A lot of the governors, a lot of the senators, a lot of the MCAs are in office courtesy of the same IEBC. So that is where we need to audit. Why is it only in the presidential election that we seem to have a problem? Why are the governors, and many of the cases that are in court are being dismissed, or we will see what the judges are going to say with the others that are in court. Okay. So that is where you need to audit, so that you don't just, you're not too subjective in your analysis. We can't just judge IEBC only on the election of the president when they conducted 6 elections. We've had a debate in this country whether it is right to have 6 elections in one day. Okay. But my own fear has also been, looking at the concentration we put on elections, I mean, we can't afford to have too many days when we are doing elections. We better just, seeing how much we hardly do anything else in that year, okay, it might just as well we do it on one day and get it over and done with. Right. And having seen what the presidential election has done in the sense of separating the presidential election from the other 5, I wish even the court had said everybody go back, because then there wouldn't have been this, you know, governors would have been involved in the election, okay, women reps would have been involved in the elections. So maybe as a country we want to keep to one day, yeah, one election, but have an IEBC that is growing from strength to strength, okay, and every audit leads us to a better product of the
Passaris, hold your thought in just a bit. Let me bring in George from Kijabe. George, good morning.
My friend.
Yes, go ahead with your comment or question, George.
I'm just a Kenyan.
Yes.
Who is just worried because of the way our nation is going.
Okay.
And I have one suggestion maybe our leaders may need to consider.
Yes.
One, we have always problems whenever there is a sitting president who is also a candidate. Mm-hmm. And my thought is, what if Kenya, we decide that we have one president who will be going for 7 years? Okay. Then he just quit.
Okay.
Because the problem is whenever there is a president who is sitting and wants to continue.
Okay.
The other thing I would like to comment is that we have seen our former Prime Minister.
Yeah.
From 1992 to today,
every
time he has been saying that the election has been stolen.
Okay.
And he has been blaming the institutions.
Okay.
My question is, will the election be good when he will win, or when he will be the president, or when assuming that today he is the president?
Okay.
He will not have any effect on the people of Nyanza, neither the people of Central, because we are suffering the same problems across the country.
Okay.
It's only the leaders who are fighting up there. But if we are given time, if we are given peace as the common man, we are able to do our work, and even work together with the people from Nyanza.
Yep.
And they work with us. I've been to Sekiri by the Western.
Okay.
Working with the rules and their friends.
Okay.
So let the leaders stop dragging us into their problem.
All right.
And give us peace that we will be able to work and to continue with our lives.
All right. Thanks.
I'd like just to say that.
Thanks, George. That's George from Kijabe. And Honorable Passaris, I'll let you respond to it. And also, as you respond to that, do you believe you won legitimately?
Let me tell you, for me, I won with 800,000 votes, okay? 860,000 votes. I was almost 10% away from my predecessor. So the 10% thing worked also on my side. So I was at 53, I think, and she was at 43. Okay? The question is, she considered and said she accepts that I've won. Yeah. All right?
But that election was held by the IEBC.
It was held by the IEBC, and I won. And there are a lot of people that have gone to court. Forget my win. The fact that Shebesh has not gone to court and she considered defeat, right? That sets me aside. All right? I don't have an issue. But there are over 300 petitions in court that have issues, including the presidential one had an issue. I want to say something to Kenyans, that in 2007, we had the post-election violence because we felt the IEBC did not do the right thing. In 2013, we had the same situation. We went to court. The courts did not. The courts ruled in favor of the election being okay, and we moved on. 2017, the courts threw out the election, said go back to the IEBC. IEBC, in a number of occasions, Chibukati, first of all, he loses Chris Msando. Second thing, he loses Rosalina Okombe. Then he comes out and says he doesn't think he's going to be ready, right? He had the option to go back to court and say, you know what, we cannot conduct a free and fair and credible election within 60 days. All right? If this country is bigger than anything, why didn't he go there? Because the pressure was so big. The irreducible minimums. Why didn't we sit down and agree on the irreducible minimums? When you have a competition with somebody and you have a referee, if the referee seems to be biased, right? You can both agree on removing him or making certain changes to the institution that the referee will not be biased. Another problem we have in this country is that we want to push everything under the carpet. It will not be easy, all right, for Uhuru to be sworn in and just move on with the high-handedness that we've seen with the government right now. There is a lot of hate, and it's gotten even worse. Any president who sits in Kenya should resolve the issues. All right, because first it was the issues between the Luos were very comfortable. Let's talk about it. Let's be open. The Luos were very comfortable with electing Kibaki as a president. Then they ask, why are the Kikuyus so difficult? They would come out almost 90% to refuse a Luo president. That's a question that we need to answer. What is this? Is it the circumcision issue? Is it a hate that we don't understand? We need to resolve this. All right. For me, I feel that's a tribalism needs to be resolved. The president has a big task there.
And how do we sort out that tribalism?
Now, the tribalism we need to sort is us now as citizens, individuals. When I'm a Kikuyu and I'm voting just because I want to make sure that my Kikuyu is there or my Kalenjin is there or my Luo is there. All right. This is wrong. All right. So we miss the issues. What are the issues? People are unemployed. People are poor. The Bill of Rights is not being implemented. You don't have access to water, access to good health, access to education. I saw the president visiting a school and saying to the students, you know, study hard. If you do well, you'll go ahead in your education, etc. We're telling our students to study hard, and we've got thousands and thousands of educated university graduates that are selling maize on the road, that are selling newspapers, that are hawking. We have a problem. We're not addressing the issues, and you know, we miss the issues. And I honestly believe we've tried Uhuru for 5 years, all right? The Kenyans wanted to try someone different. I have Kikuyu friends who will not say it in public, but they voted for Raila, and they never showed up to vote. You saw the turnouts in all the Kikuyu areas, all right? The people didn't turn out to vote as much as we say they did. The queues were not there. It was 25–30%. That should tell you something. But even if they had, for me, that is good. Okay. The fact that they didn't turn out is good. It shows that Raila has a lot more support, that we don't want it known.
But it also has to be very clear that even President Uhuru himself has a lot of support.
Yes,
and that's the reason why we're saying, how do we find
No. Hold on. Uhuru has a lot of support in accordance with the 8th August election. In accordance with the 17th of August election, right, where the turnout, the 22nd of this 26th of August election, the turnout was very low. We ask ourselves, why are people coming up? Because let me tell you, poverty does not know whether you're a Kikuyu, a Luo, or a Kalenjin. Poverty is poverty. Everybody's feeling it. So us as Kenyans, we have to ask ourselves, when we choose a leader, what is it that is making us choose our own tribe? There is a lot of propaganda. There is fear. We create such fear. We demonize Raila. I mean, the first opening statement of the president, right, when he received his certificate recently, was the forces of darkness have been overcome. But he also said that he's willing to hold a dialogue after the process. The forces of darkness have been overcome. And then he takes one of NASA candidate's comment on witchcraft and he puts it there on his statement. For me, I'm not a force of darkness. I will work and serve any Kenyan. I do not know tribe. I'm a child of God. I love all Kenyans. But there are Kenyans who are hating on me. You know, I've sat on panels, and you know what the panelists from Jubilee tell me? Wait, you don't look nice, you don't fit into that group that you're in. I will see what you can work with. Why don't you move and come back to Rudi Nyumbani? Where is Nyumbani? This world is not my home. I'm fighting for eternal life. Okay? There's no Nyumbani for me. I am so happy. Can I tell you something? I want to tell every Kikuyu leader, every Kalenjin leader, every leader in Kenya. All right? I am so happy when I go through an informal settlement and I am embraced and loved by communities that are not my own. That to me is true love. When a community that is not my own can trust me and entrust me with leadership to serve them, I believe that I'm doing God's work. Okay.
All right. And before bringing in Priscilla and we talk about this tribalism and how to slay that dragon, we have another call online. Kennedy, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Trevor.
Yes, I'm very good. Go ahead, your comment or question, sir.
Yes, kwa majina ni Kennedy.
Yes.
Kutoka Nairobi County.
Yes, Kennedy.
Ile kitu swali ambayo nataka niseme ni hasa viongozi wetu.
Yes.
Matamshi wanapotoa.
Yes.
Wajua kwamba Wakenya wengi wanafuatilia. Na ile kitu ambayo mimi nataka niambie viongozi, nimefuatilia sana wakiongea hasa Esther Passaris.
Yes.
Anapoongea. Kweli Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga.
Yes.
Ameingia katika kinyang'anyiro tangu tuseme 2007. 1997.
Yes, endelea.
Akashindwa. 2007 mambo ingine ikatokea kweli ikaendelea. 2013 akashindwa. Ile kitu ambayo anaongelea juu yake anasema kwamba anaposhindwa anasema IEBC ni mbaya. IEBC inarekebishwa. IEBC ni mbaya inarekebishwa. Ile kitu hapa nataka niambie watu wa opposition hata Esther Passaris anapoongea.
Yes.
Nchi ni ya muhimu kuliko kila mmoja wa kiongozi.
Okay.
Kitu ambacho nataka nimalizie Mr. Trevor.
Yes.
Kiongozi wetu. Mchallenge yetu. Sisi wa Kenya tunapendana.
Okay.
Mimi tunapakana na watu ambao wanatoka Nyanza. Mambo huwa yanatokea ili wananchi wanapokongana.
Okay.
Ni matamshi ya viongozi.
Okay.
Nimalizie nikisema.
Sawa. Maliza.
Nchi inahitaji viongozi ambao wanachali wa Kenya.
Okay.
Na mwisho Trevor.
Yes.
Kwa viongozi wetu wawili ambao wako pale natazama kwa runinga. Mimi ni wa mama ambao mmetusaa. Maandamano inapoitishwa.
Yes.
Sisi kama vijana wenu ama wasijana tunaenda katika maandamano.
Yeah.
Sisi kama Afrika ama Kenya hatujielewa sana mambo ya maandamano. Tunasema kwamba tuandamane kutoka Monday mpaka Friday. Mimi kama hafla.
Yes.
Ninapoamka asubuhi nienda maandamano.
Yeah.
Niko na watoto wanatoka kule waende shule, lakini wao viongozi siku yao inaingia.
Okay.
Ninapoenda nyumbani ndugu yangu.
Yes.
Ama nifike pale nipigwe risasi. Kwa maana sijafanya maandamano kwa njia ya ile ambayo inafaa katika katiba.
Okay.
Inaenda ninapora vitu ya mali ya watu.
Okay.
Nafanya ninapopatikana na shida nipigwe risasi kwa miguu ama wapi, wale viongozi hawatanikaribia, hawatanisaidia. Watu ambao watanisaidia bwana Trevor.
Yes.
Ni wazazi wangu watakuwa na shida.
Okay. Asante Ken. That's Kennedy speaking to us from Nandi. And Honorable Priscilla, I was coming to you. How do we slay this tribalism dragon? Because most people are pointing fingers to the leaders. They say we live as neighbors, but the leaders are the ones who misguide us. How do we solve out this issue?
Yeah, that is indeed true. That a lot of our ethnic tensions come to the fore during elections. Yeah. It's almost like we live in peace for 4 years, and on the last year of elections, then I remember I'm Kikuyu, and you remember you're Luo, and you remember you're Kalenjin, as we go to vote. So we need to deal with that question. And we need to get to a level where leaders are elected by track record. So that it is not that Kikuyus don't like the former Prime Minister. It is that we don't have a track record of his development. We don't have a track record of what he has done over the years. We have a track record of his performance in democracy, which is quite admirable anywhere in this world. I think he's put a good effort. I mean, even this court case that we had this last time, it has pushed our democracy to levels that we would never have thought possible. So there he has a good track record. But in terms of development, in terms of how many students have gone to school, how has the level of poverty moved from 54% to 30% during his tenure, we don't have that track record. So it is not true that we just don't like the former Prime Minister. It's also that we want certain things done and we don't see that he's capable of doing those things. But the only way we can tell, and the only way we had a chance to tell who between the two is popular, was through the election. So it's quite regrettable that the former Prime Minister opted to boycott this election. It is even new for him as well. It's new for his side of development, for his side of divide. We haven't seen a boycott of an election in this country since independence. In all of the elections that we have had, he has been a contestant. He has not withdrawn. So this is the first time he also has to deal with a question of withdrawal. And I think the law was not even prepared for any such action. Unfortunately, he also read the law before the Mativo decision. So if the Mativo decision had not returned the other candidates, Kuru Okot and the team, maybe we would be in a different space. But now that the Mativo decision returned these other candidates, it became a little bit even more difficult. But then going forward, I think the question becomes avoid hate speech, so that separate what are mistakes of leaders from the population. Even for me as a Kikuyu and our President Uhuru Kenyatta, even though we support and we love him and we support his development record, when he's doing hospitals, we want hospitals done across the country. We don't want also to suffer, and somebody pointed it out correctly, that even we in Jubilee and we in Central, for example, are starting to feel the effects of a formula that shares devolution funds to the disadvantage of our counties. That's also not right. But then we should separate what is the problem of a leader against the tribe, so that if there are any mistakes by Jubilee administration, if there are any things that Jubilee has not done, if there's any corruption, for example, in the Jubilee administration, that's not individual Kikuyus who are corrupt. So you can't go to the street and say all Kikuyus are corrupt, or beat up Mama Mboga who is just selling her wares, probably didn't vote or voted for her own reasons, and that violence should then not come to the Mwananchi. And that is why the maandamano and demonstrations and all those things are not very good. I have a feeling that if these leaders, and especially at the very top political level, if they start together, they are a political class. They drive agenda of this country. They can get an agreement among themselves that then is suitable. The only thing is that that agreement needs to follow within the constitution. And then everybody else in the country, if Wanjiko is your friend, if Kibet is your friend, if Onyango is your friend, I have very, very, very personal and close friends who are not Kikuyus and who are Luos. I have had a lot of good times by the lakeside. I would hate to imagine that my daughter will not go to Kisumu and have fish just because she's born in Central. I would not like that country. I've been to Binta, I've been to Homa Bay. Friends also have been to Nyeri. I would hate to imagine that we cannot sell tea that we grow in Nyeri to the Luos in this economic sabotage just because we are Kikuyus. I think that's not the country we are looking for. Okay. We are looking for a country where tolerance is obtained, where all of us are citizens, but where we have good leaders who are moving the debate on economic development. Remember, in Kenya, I'm getting very afraid even with the parliament that she's going to sit in the 12th parliament. The way that we have started, we are at risk of having a parliament that is going to spend 5 years doing nothing else but these electoral systems, doing these electoral laws. When are we going to do housing? When shall we ever do free secondary education? When shall we do the nurses strike? When shall we do the doctors' salaries? So we have to agree as a country to close the debate on elections so that we can open many more important debates, and debates where if Passaris and I came here, for example, on a matter of housing and informal settlements, you would find that there we agree. If we are talking about how much money the government should set aside for free secondary education, you would find that there we agree. Because if they said 25 billion, there's going to be money in Nairobi, there's going to be money in Nyeri, there's going to be money in Homa Bay, and that's where we want to push this country.
Okay. Honorable Passaris, before you answer this question, how do we foster political tolerance? Because we know your politicians like yourselves and the others coming from the Jubilee side, you people are friends outside the screen where there's a contest of ideas, but you people are friends down there, but that doesn't replicate to the people down. Before you answer the question, let's take another call. It's called Julius from Kisumu. Julius, good morning.
Good morning to you, Trevor.
Yes, go ahead with your comment or question, Julius.
Yeah, my problem, what actually,
yes,
whatever has been happening in Kenya,
yes,
they have demonized one person called Raila.
Okay.
Yeah, they have demonized him. So, like for example, I had some friends, Kikuyu friends.
Yes.
Yeah, they always tell me, even from the time 2007, when the country was charged and everybody was sure that Raila was going to get presidency.
Yes.
There was a friend of mine who told me openly that there is no way Raila can be given presidency under whatever circumstance.
Okay.
Yeah, now, when it came to the matter of IEBC, they demonized Raila that he was the one going to take those two people to IEBC.
Okay.
Now, even now, in 2017, whatever Raila has been talking about, the former prime minister, came into limelight when the judiciary threw out the nullified the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta.
Okay.
Now the problem here is these people, they don't trust Raila. They think that if Raila attempts the presidency, there are so many bad things that have been taking place in Kenya. So they think that maybe the ICC case will be rejuvenated. At the same time, Raila might take them to court and maybe pay for all those things.
All right,
That is why
Julius.
they have sworn. They also told me, some of my friends told me that they have sworn that Raila will never become president.
All right, Julius, thanks. You've made your point already. That's Julius from Kisumu. And Honorable, I wanted you to respond to that issue. How do we foster political tolerance?
You said we are friends.
Yes.
Let me tell you, we're not friends. We are fake. We're fake. There's no real person. There's no person that actually says the truth anymore. There's no person that lives the truth. All right? And the people that suffer are the Kenyans who have been manipulated because of their poverty. All right? Who've been brainwashed into thinking that if you have your leader of your own, that, you know, that then your community does well. All right? So for me, we've lost it. All right? Raila, in my opinion, all right? And God forgive me if I'm wrong, Raila has won many elections in this country. But there is a concerted effort by the people in power to make sure that Raila never becomes president of Kenya.
My concern is more about you as a leader.
Yes.
You're saying you're fake. You're not friends.
No, I'm saying that there's no, when you look at people generally, all right, I try and be real.
Yeah.
All right. So I can relate to the other side. I can relate to NASA's side. All right. But the fact is, when my sister here says, "Oh, we're friends," and the leaders can talk, and the leaders are this, they don't talk. They don't address the issues. The truth of the matter is, we have institutions that we credit Raila for building. Devolution is a child of Raila. Our infrastructure program, he put it in place. We don't want to credit Raila with anything that is good in this country. We just want to demonize him. But the fact is, a lot of people know that Raila is actually a man that loves this country, that wants to put us right, that wants to strengthen the institutions. Anti-corruption, the body is dead. All right? We have corruption as an issue that is breeding crime and poverty, but we don't want to talk about corruption because corruption is what we embrace. It's how we're going to do things. It's how we're going to reward people. I mean, that's how we work. And everybody right now, you see when Parliament opens, we'll probably have Jubilee already trying to buy quite a number of parliamentarians from the side of NASA. Why? So that they can get the numbers to do what they want. They'll probably try and break their alliance as well because they've got the money. But the fact is, you do that, you cripple the opposition, and we've seen this tyranny of numbers that is not even real, crippling the opposition. Once you do that, we go back to a one-party state. Kenyans, we can forget about elections. All I'm saying is that let us be true to ourselves. The IEBC has never conducted a free, fair and credible election. When I ran in Embakasi, they loaded 10,000 votes into Waititu's basket. Why? Because at that time PNU was not prepared not to win that seat. When I was running for mayor, my name was not gazetted the Friday before the election. Government can manipulate systems and then laugh there and say, "Oh, everything is right. We don't want any changes. Everything is perfect." You know, the way that Kimundu, the way they insult Raila. It's not even African for us to insult each other.
But you just said your election was legitimate.
Let me say something. No, excuse me. My election was done by IEBC. Yeah. All right. Shebesh did not contest. Nobody else contested it. So
you're still questioning the legitimacy as well, just because you didn't contest. I'm saying,
let me say something. When we were doing all the polls that were done before, before the elections, all the polls that were done, I was at a 30% margin with Shebesh. All right. At the final election on 8th of August, it stayed within 10%. So the story of the 10% margins, right, had some truth in it. Okay. It had some truth in it. So did I win by 800,000? Maybe not. Maybe I had 1 million votes. Maybe the system. I saw my ballots thrown in certain places. I had places where our agents were thrown away. All right. So was it free and fair? Was it 100%? Can we ever get it 100%? No. But can we get it right? Only if we all agree that, look, let's compete fairly. Okay. If Raila wins, so be it. If Raila loses, so be it. But at the end of the day, to have an effort to make sure that Raila never ascends to presidency. Okay. That is what I'm against.
Honorable Nyokabi, how do we foster political tolerance? I'm trying to get away from the political talk of who doesn't want who to do what, to bring it back to the people on the ground. How do we foster that political tolerance?
Honesty, truth, justice. You cannot have peace without justice. We're talking around and saying, let's have peace. Let's not. How do we have peace when Luos and opposition supporters are being killed and nobody is thinking of addressing it? And then we burden the Red Cross. The government is not even thinking of how to help the Red Cross so that they can actually help the citizens. I mean, at the end of the day, what has the government done to actually help heal this nation. Unleashing Mungiki on Kawangware and then coming back and making Simbarati go into hiding because your government, and you want to make it look like Simbarati was behind this. It wasn't Simbarati who was behind this.
Okay.
Let's be honest.
Okay. Honorable Nyokabi, how do we bring
I still go back to where I started from.
Yeah.
That we follow the legalities until the end of this process. Because after the election and the president is declared, there is a period for challenge of that election if you want to challenge, and if anybody wants to challenge, so it's going to be 7 days for that. If there are no challenges to that, then the president is sworn in. As soon as the president is sworn in, I think that this question of political tolerance is going to come back.